there's a bit of motion blur and flash as well as natural light. And so it kind of creates this like surreal or um, uncanny kind of situation in terms of the subject and the lighting and the environment.
You've got works in there that spans from 2022 to 25 and across 4 continents. And I was just wondering for you, what brings these works that you're showing together? What's the common thread?
I suppose for the exhibition, I wanted to choose predominantly images from the book because they're connected. And I don't know, for the exhibition, I was kind of just looking to choose images that were a little bit more ambiguous or abstract. And yeah, it was almost purely just visual. I like the way the colors and the kind of subjects flow throughout the show.
And I saw that you work exclusively in film. Is there any particular colors that you're drawn to capturing through film?
There's no like specific colors that I'm drawn to. I suppose I do like shiny things. So golds and silvers always jump out at me. But uh, yeah, I think it's more, I guess a lot of my photography is quite documentative and spontaneous. So it's more about sort of like a moment, an image, a scene that really grabs me in the moment. And often that will be informed by colors and things like that. But that all kind of comes to me after the fact. It's more in the like editing and collating stage that I sort of find these themes of color and subject and meaning.
Can you perhaps tell me a little bit about the stage in your life between 2022 and 2025 when you captured these images? What sort of significance does that hold for you personally?
Sure. I suppose like it's been a really yeah, it's been a period of a lot of personal growth and exploration, both internally and of the world. I came off methadone in 2019, and so by 2022, I was sort of like fully embodied and living my life to the fullest again. Um, and then, yeah, I traveled to Europe for the first time in 2022, which is kind of where the book begins. And then last year, my father died at the start of the year. And that kind of, yeah, sort of grappling with that event and processing all of that, I was really compelled to travel as much as possible, and went on a big trip to Korea with a couple of my best friends, and then with another friend went to Europe and North Africa with my father's ashes and kind of spread him around as much of the world as possible. And there's actually a photograph in the book and exhibition of my father's ashes in the Aegean Sea, just off the coast of Greece. Yeah, it was a big time for like spiritual growth, I suppose.
And it sounds like, just basing off the name of the Dreamlike collection, I've been thinking about this idea of how moments in our life where it feels really surreal as well. And I
Mm,
particularly feel that when I'm traveling, the huge kind of environmental shift, the cultural change,
yeah,
it can all provoke the sense of like, wow, like, am I real? Is everything happening real?
yeah,
That
yeah.
feeling, I think, is perhaps something that you communicate through your photographs as well. I was wondering whether there's, any personal, or you already have shared some personal stories with that thought. But the other aspect that I noted in your work, as you mentioned, is that they're mostly, unstaged. They're
Mm.
quite candid in the way that you capture them. So it feels like there's this I guess, balance between the real, the authentic, the candid, and the surreal, the magical.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, that's part of what I strive for in my work is to kind of capture in this very real and tangible and sort of unplanned, unstaged, and not tampered with moment of something that feels magical or beyond the realms of reality, surreal. Um, I think there's something in the act of sort of capturing a moment that feels potentially unreal. There's like a magic in that act. And I think as well with film photography, the whole process of like capturing an image using film is so alchemical and kind of arcane and magical to me, because I don't completely understand how this like gelatin negative can, you know, mimic the eye and sort of freeze a moment in time like that.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's a big thrust of my motivation and what I set out to do with this exhibition and book.
Do you remember the first time you picked up a film camera? What it was like?
Yeah, actually, my mentor is a photographer who's also Sydney-based, called Julie Sundberg, and she taught me photography when I was 11, and gave me a camera which I still use quite often to this day, like an old 70s SLR. And yeah, I don't know, she just kind of took me under her wing very young and taught me how to use an old film camera in a very kind of, I guess by today's standards, like archaic approach, which I think has been really fundamental in informing my approach to photography. But she also instilled in me like a spirit and an appreciation of a specific type of photography, and a kind of a real concern with like authenticity and with yeah, sort of capturing reality, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think there's always that element of unpredictability in film as well. You don't necessarily know from the time between you click the shutter and when it's developed what actually is going to happen, you know, the aspects in the image that might come out as a surprise. So I think
Yeah,
chance perhaps has a role in that as well.
definitely. I think like that's, yeah, for me, that's a big part of the magic of photography, is that, of film photography especially, is that kind of, yeah, that unknown element, that chance, this kind of collision of variable factors that can lead to something really transcendent and magical.
I was wondering if you can tell me a little bit more about the story behind the cover image for your photo book of this figure on a horse by the beach, and the fact that you've taken a photo from the back side but then also from the front side. And it seems to me there's this perhaps duality and dichotomy at play.
Yeah, so that image, I was traveling Europe and Africa with my friend Mia last year, and we were in Tunisia at the time, on this kind of desert island off the coast called Jerba, which we found once we arrived was actually quite not, I don't know, a little bit abandoned. And we went to this beach, and there was just a man kind of trying to get people to ride his horse. So Mia jumped on the horse and I just took some photos. I took like, you know, a handful of photos of her on the horse. And then last year I was working on an exhibition in Sydney that I had toward the end of the year. And I was trying to focus on images that were not straight portraiture, like to sort of, yeah, to sort of choose, like similar to the exhibition in Melbourne, to choose images that were a little bit more ambiguous, a little bit more detached from someone's identity and more about the world and the environment around them. And the cover photo of Mia on the horse really jumped out at me. And so I knew that that was going to go into the book when we were putting it together. And then when it came time to choosing the cover image, that just resonated with me as kind of the most obvious choice. And finding that I had the same shot from the same position, but with Mia and the horse facing in a different direction, there was something about that mirroring of the images that really spoke to me. And I guess the sort of layout of the book is very deliberate in terms of the spreads, and that's the center spread for the book as well. So there's a big part of the book is kind of the relationship between the two images that sit opposite each other. And I just thought that was like a really elegant pairing that lended itself nicely to a book cover.
I thought the image was really striking in particular as well, and I kind of liked how the boundaries are not very clearly defined in some of the details.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of motion blur and flash as well as natural light. And so it kind of creates this like surreal or uncanny kind of situation in terms of the subject and the lighting and the environment. And yeah, to me, it looks like a dream image. There's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of blur, there's a lot of motion, and it seems, I don't know, beyond the realms of reality.
Yeah, there was one question that I wanted to ask you in relation to the dream, you know, whether you remember your own dreams, and if you do, whether there was a recurring motif.
I actually don't remember a lot of my dreams, which is unfortunate because I love like Jungian analysis and things like this, but they're very vivid and real in the moment, and then within moments of waking up, they're completely gone from my psyche.
Yeah, or perhaps, you know, sometimes it can be unconscious as well, where you project from a dream that you might not necessarily remember onto a
Yeah.
certain.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have this feeling when I'm going through my photography after the fact, which is often a while after taking the photograph, especially when traveling, where, yeah, the way that the image is captured in these moments that I do vividly remember from my waking life, but the the way that they appear to me kind of seeps into my subconscious and like creates this sort of other world that exists in my mind that I think does come into play in my dream life as well.
I'm wondering, what would you say is your biggest inspiration right now for your art?
Um, that's difficult. I mean, in terms of like, I'm very inspired by Nan Goldin and Larry Clark and these kind of superstars of photography that I suppose share a similar approach to myself. They were very like fundamental in forming my interest in photography and my eye. But to be honest, I don't really consume a lot of photography anymore as a viewer. I prefer to just participate in it. But I guess the things that inspire me are just the people around me, the environments around me, and animals as well are like a huge. I'm always drawn to these things: plants, animals, people. And I suppose a lot of my work is very personal. It's quite diaristic, I suppose. But I'm really like a recurring interest of mine is documenting spaces of the people that I'm photographing, like their bedrooms and their dresses and things of this nature, because it feels like this kind of somewhat unintentional extension of the self. And I think in documenting that, it's almost like a different form of portraiture that's more collaborative with the subject and also doesn't actually necessarily include the subject in the image physically, but spiritually and like through their belongings and the way they arrange their spaces, it sort of speaks to their inner world.
Out of curiosity, around how many rolls of film do you go through on, like, you know, say a month?
It really depends on whether I go through periods where I'm shooting a lot and periods where I don't shoot at all. My last book was 11 years ago, so that's kind of testament to my approach to photography. It can be quite sporadic. But when I went to Korea last year, I think I, in the space of 10 days, shot about 18 rolls of film.
Wow.
Yeah, I get really snap happy when I'm in a shooting mode. And then I think with my photos when I traveled Europe and North Africa last year, I think there was easily 30 rolls from about 8 weeks.
Yeah, you're right. There are these particular moments where you just, feel so motivated and inspired to capture
Yeah,
everything. I definitely felt a little bit like that in Korea as well when I had my little camera, and some of the architecture was really amazing in the street scenes. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I
yeah,
wanted to thank you so much for this beautiful conversation, Jack.
my pleasure.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your time in Melbourne.
Thanks so much, Celina. It was lovely to meet you.